Jesus said, "Congratulations to the one who's come into being before coming into being. If you become my disciples and pay attention to my sayings, these stones will serve you. For there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change, summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows of them will not taste death." His disciples said, "Show us the place where you are." He said to them, "Anyone here with 2 ears had better listen. There is light within a person of light, and it shines on the whole world. If it does not shine, it is dark." All right, let's do this. So this is going to be an interesting episode. I mentioned before that throughout this podcast, we'll have periods of time where I may be discovering something new. And I mean, I'm kind of always discovering something new, but every now and then I get major revelations. And again, they're very big. And the fun is in embodying them within myself and finding a way to express it, not just to share information, but ultimately to share information that can be received and applied by others in such a way that it can lead to positive transformation for our environment. And we will see how this plays out. I sat here for 45 minutes just sitting here, contemplating about whether I should even do one yet or let it savor and things like that. Ultimately, I decided to just go with it. All right. So we're going to harken back to what we were talking about the other day. Now, the stuff that I'm going to talk about here with this, I'm going to kind of give you an idea for diagrams of what you have for tools at your disposal. And what I'll do is, if you want to grab a pen and paper, that's probably the best way for me to do this. If you want to grab a pen and paper, I'll kind of outline it for you. Now, are these details super important? No, you could get some value from this regardless if you wrote it down or not. Is what I'm going to share with you an absolute? No, everything's incomplete anyways. Especially with this, because it feels good to me. But just like a person who gets an inspiration for writing a story, right? Let's say you have an author and they want to write a story and they get an inspiration and it starts flying out of them. As they're going through the writing of the story, either through personal experience or reflection back from what they presented as they're writing, they make some changes, right? Same thing with an architect. He or she gets this great idea for this building they want to make, and it's like it's there. They know it's there. It's beautiful because the building is there in their mind, but it's like so big, they have to bring it in. And as they bring it in, it refines itself. So what I'm going to provide here is something that has been basically whispering to me, sometimes yelling at me for a long time. And every time I went to write it down, I would, like, there were things I would write and I didn't even know why I was writing it. Anybody who's on my spaces on Twitter, and there's maybe people from the spaces that are on here. If you look at my profile pic, that symbol that I drew that 4 years ago before I knew or was aware of knowing the majority of what I share on this podcast now. I woke up and just basically it was like a radio, and I started tuning into a whole bunch of information that just, it's crazy, right? That symbol is very similar to what I'm going to share here. So it keeps haunting me, so to speak, and it's telling me that when I understand it fully, it would be like just basically like saying once it's getting to the next level. Does that mean you stop there? No. You're always growing. If you learn to ride a bike, you just learn how to ride a bike better. But there is a point when you are now a bike rider, right? So it's these 13 kind of points of consciousness that have come in as inspiration. So they come in. So I've told you guys before, right? Things come in as inspiration. I use my intelligence to quantify it. I have to apply practical application. I have to hold a vigilant intent that this is something that I want to bring to fruition. continue on that path, and then eventually through practical experience, it embeds itself into my intuition and finally my instinct. And so now it becomes a new second nature for me, right? And you can actually see that when you're like, if you go to learn to ride a bike, right? So when you first get on that bike, you're going to be relying on some inspiration, which is this kind of newness because you're doing something you've never done before, right? If you haven't ridden a bike before, and which would make sense if you're learning to ride a bike. So you've never ridden a bike before, so you need access to newness. So you start channeling in inspiration, and this is what allows people, if you see like especially babies when they're trying new things, this is what allows them to not keep repeating themselves, right? If there wasn't a level of newness that they could draw from, they would keep doing the same thing over and over. But it's this newness that's like, okay, we tried that, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. It keeps making suggestions, right? And the inspiration is lighter and softer. It's like airy. So when it comes in, the baby is exploring, right? And actually, you'll find that a lot of creative people, myself included, may have been diagnosed with learning disabilities when they were younger, because we embody characteristics of a type that leans more heavily on that inspirational energy than perhaps others do. And you'll usually find that there is a disparity between those who seem to, like when we were I'm in my 40s, so when I was a kid, the people that seemed to be smarter were the ones that were able to listen to the teacher, follow directions, not question authority, and do things the way you're told. That was like literally what they indicated a good learner to be. It's kind of crazy, actually, if you think about it, right? Whereas someone like me, and I'm sure other people that listen to this cast are probably leaned more heavily into the inspirational aspect of things. But the way I learned, and still do, although I have found some balance, the way that I learned is like a heretic or a martyr, like in that if someone gave me a baseball bat and said, okay, Veritas, here's this baseball bat, see this, watch me, and they swing it, see that, see my foot, see how my foot's here and my other foot's here, like just like that, and you just go, all you gotta do is just go, right? You're gonna throw the ball and all you gotta do is go. Now my mind was extremely open, so, and I'm a kid and I haven't developed a solid foundation of relationship of things. So my mind was so open. I wouldn't just lock on to something simple like put your foot here. My mind is looking at everything, and it's so open that I would basically, the way I used to want to learn when I was younger is like, tell me a couple things and then put it in my hand and let me just play around for like 30 minutes with it. Like, just leave me alone. You know what I mean? And let me just play around with it and try out a bunch of things. And then let me come back and ask some questions, because I learn I'm not just trying to learn how to do what you say. I want to learn and understand how it works. And so even though it looks like, so if I would go to swing, my mind would almost like want to swing like a pendulum and try all these weird ways, hold the bat differently. You should see how I do so many things. I do so many things kind of just different than everybody. And I would play around with it. And it looks like I had a learning disability, because they're like, why doesn't he just get it? Why doesn't he just do what we tell him to do? And it was like, well, why? Like, I want to understand this. Now, as a kid, this was very, very tough. They had me in special education until 3rd grade. And then they had a tester come and test me, and they actually realized they claimed that they called it gifted. They found out I was gifted, and so of course I couldn't stay in the special class anymore, which I used to love because like I didn't have to do anything and just got to eat like ice cream, and it was cool. And eventually, what ended up happening for me is I went out in the world and I made lots of mistakes, but all of those mistakes that I made gave me a depth of understanding of things that a lot of other people didn't have. And another thing that got me in trouble in school was asking why. I used to literally get in trouble. I had to bring a report home every day about how I behaved that day. He questions too much, questioning authority. And I wasn't questioning them to be a jerk. I was questioning them because I wanted to know why. Why are we doing this? I actually never learned cursive because I refused to learn it. At that time, we were already learning to type in school on a typewriter. And they had already taught me how to print. And I was like, why do I have to learn this? I already know how to write, and I can write fast. I don't see the point of learning this. So I would deliberately, when the teacher would write on the chalkboard the words that we'd have to write on a piece of paper, I would just act like I couldn't do it, and I was going so slow. And she would have to erase it and write the next thing for people to write, and they just was like, whatever. That's just how he is. I have no idea where I was going, what my train of thought was, because I just went into the past there. But I'm happy I did that because I think it might be useful for someone else who thinks like me, right? So, anyways, we sit in between the that's what it was. All right. So the way that we learn, if you're going to learn how to ride a bike, right? That's what it was. You're going to need some newness, right? So when I was a kid and I'm learning how to swing the bat, I'm bringing in new things. Oh, what if this? What if this? What if this? Oh, let me try that. Let me try that. What would happen if I do this? What would happen if I do that? Right? And that's where real creativity can come from, right? Now, if you leaned super heavily in just the inspiration and you didn't refine it at some point, you would just be running around never really completing any projects at all. You know what I mean? And there might be some... Sorry, my cat's playing with the ball. Some lack of value there for you, right? Depends on what your intentions are for your life. For me, it's almost like it's really beautiful in hindsight. I think for me, my soul wanted the first 40 years of my life to be aimless. I mean, I had success, but that's just because I'm a reasonably smart person and I communicate well, so it was really easy for me to either get in a good position or rise the ranks in places, right? But I didn't really care about it. I was just floating around I feel like 40 years of my life was dedicated to exploring this world, making lots and 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 lots of mistakes, which came with a whole bunch of valuable wisdom. And then basically at 40 years old, a flip switched. And it said, now it's time for your purpose. Right? And and look at that, right? So right there is valuable wisdom for me. Because it allows me to look at somebody else. I don't care if they're 20, 25, 30, 32, especially young kids, teenagers, and appreciate that they could be at a stage in their life and their soul is in the wide open experiencing and learning phase, and that there can be incredible value in that. And I can usually feel their frequency and know when someone is looking for, it just took me a lot of practice too, to know when someone is looking for the energy that I bring, which is this kind of transformative change energy, or they're not there yet. And who am I to come in like the way the teachers would be with me? Veritas, we told you to do it this way. Why don't you just do it this way? Because I'm exploring. And my soul knows, I mean, this is not how I replied. I didn't know. But it was ultimately because I was learning in a way that young children learn, which is obviously must be extremely successful. They wouldn't learn to talk and walk that quickly and effectively. There's a lot of beauty, and that's why Jesus said we must be like small children to reach the kingdom, right? So I can basically look at people these days, and I can almost see which direction they're heading. Some people seem like they're just walking around in circles, but actually, let's say it this way: it's like there's kind of two directions they're heading in. One, they're still exploring the old energy, cool, or they've just they're either like heading towards exploring the old energy, or they're at the point where they're ready to turn around. And if I see someone heading towards the old energy, I'll engage, and I'll be able to quickly understand that they have their path, and I'll let them do what they're doing, and respect and love them going down their path just the way I did. I made lots of mistakes. Imagine someone jumping in and judging me. It's like I'm thankful for all of them now, because I have so much wisdom from them. So I let them go. And then for those who are like, okay, I've had enough of this. You're on the other path, heading in that direction. What do you suggest? And then I'll be able to share information with them that they want, right? So when we're learning, you have kind of 4 things that you're going to be drawing from what we would call it's 4 tools. Inspiration, right? The other one is intelligence, and then intelligence is a little bit more form, right? It allows in that inspiration and understanding, and it kind of works hand in hand with it, right? It's a creative. Intelligence is, the more intelligence you have, it's going to lend to your creativity. Just like the more inspiration you have, the more it's going to lend to the appearance of your personified character having the ability to create, right? Change, right? And then, so you have inspiration, intelligence, right? And then you have intuition. Intuition is a little heavier, right? It is more built upon kind of past, older energy behavior patterns, right? Than kind of the intelligence and the inspiration is, right? So intuition draws from more like a subconscious kind of way, right? And then finally you have instinct. And instinct is, a lot of people think that, it's just the instinct that you're given as a baby, right? Like, so some animals that are less creative, right? You can see it. It's actually fascinating, right? Isn't it interesting that when you look at beings, oh wow, this is cool. I just got a cool little connection that I'm not sure if I was aware of before. Ready? Watch this. So, isn't it interesting that if you look at children that are have a lot of creative ability, natural creative ability, right, inherent in them at a young age, they're usually the ones that will look like they have a learning disability, right? And I've already explained, at least in my case and what I've seen in many others, what's actually happening is that kid is a very creative kid who operates from they will be intelligent, but at the beginning, they have to operate from a very highly inspirational state of being so they can explore and understand things. Once they understand, they want to understand their environment so they can truly create in it, because it's that understanding that surpasses just doing things because you're told to do it. So you'll often find that kids that look like they may struggle in the beginning can actually be the most creative children. These are the ones that they were given meth to. They put me on meth when I was 4 years old because I was highly creative and didn't like the idea of just being told what to do without knowing why, right? Literally, they put me on Ritalin when I was 4 years old. Even Adderall, it's methamphetamine salts, which didn't help me because the problem is they said, oh, you're like this because you have low dopamine. I was like that because I wanted to explore and create. My soul wanted to explore and create. And our body rewards us with dopamine on a physical level, which we could call focus and happiness, when we're aligned with like what makes sense for us, right? And when we're in that state of being, we get plenty of dopamine. But when you take a creative being that wants to explore and understand their world by trying out a whole bunch of things, and you force them to sit down and do what you're told, they don't feel good because their heart and their soul wants to understand and explore their environment and have a level of freedom that they're not getting. So it's like, oh, you're broken, right? And other children, they don't have that desire to go at that point in school, like to go and understand it in as wide of a way, right? My brother told me when I was younger, it took me a while, some time in my life to learn how to really actually interact with other people without being a weirdo. And my brother, I used to ask him, I was like, why does everybody seem irritated when I come over and try to talk? Because I was a friendly kid. And he was like, listen, man, He goes, imagine you get a bunch of people and they're all sitting around and they're talking about what they like. And they'll be like, one of them will be like, I like the color blue. And someone comes over and they say, blue. Ooh, yes. That color? I like blue too. I like blue. I like blue shirts. I like blue pants. I like my bedroom's blue. And then someone else comes over and says, hey, what you guys talking about? We're talking about the color blue. Oh, I don't really like the color blue, but I do like colors. And I like color red. And I like talking about colors. And I like talking about the things that I paint. Like my car's red. Oh, cool. You know, I had a blue car once. And then my brother's like, and then you come over. And you're like, guys, what are you talking about? And they're like, we're talking about colors. Hey, guys, have you ever contemplated the idea that perhaps colors are not as solid as we think they are? That maybe, in some sense, they're sounds? And my brother's like, everybody just looks at you like, ugh, dude, man. Way to ruin the conversation. And then, they walk away. And here's what's cool, right? So you notice how there are animals that are less creative than man, right? All right, so you have inspiration, intelligence, intuition, and instinct, right? So let's look at some animals that have less inspiration than man. They're less creative than man, right? So they're basically able to operate from a program within, a conformed program. Easier, right? Because it would be the inversion. So do you notice that the things that are the least creative operate more on instinct? The pre-program, the code that was already programmed in. So they're born with a code, a pre-programmed code of how to be. And so they pop out of the wombs and they're just running around. Not all of them, right? But you can see some correlation between the creatures that are born and operate instantly from instinct, that don't need to be taught or anything, or don't need some time to learn creatively how to manipulate the body. The ones that operate by instinct and the ones that seem to get it quicker when they're born, get with the program quicker when they're born, tend to be the least creative if in the animal kingdom. And yeah, the animal kingdom. And the ones that are the most creative, humans, I mean, I could be incorrect here. They may not take the longest to learn how to move around and walk and stuff like that, but they're up there, right? And so there's definitely a correlation between that, right? The key here is, though, for getting into the elevated state of consciousness, some people call it Christ consciousness, some people call it fourth dimensional consciousness, whatever you want to call it. You could actually jump from a three-dimensional consciousness to a fourth dimensional consciousness the same way that you would climb from any dimensional awareness. It's just adding more parameters. And so to go from, I wrote it out before, it has something to do with 13. When you want to go, so let's say you have a three-dimensional understanding of something. That thing, even though it's a three-dimensional understanding, you compress it back. Like, so you divide, and you say you give the parameters that give it the dimensions, length, width, height, whatever, right? And then you say, okay, this three-dimensional object is this thing, right? So now, to make it a fourth dimensional object, or to have a fourth dimensional understanding of it, you'd have to take that one thing that was comprised of the three, and now it becomes its own singular thing. And then you would, to expand it, you have to take that single thing and then turn it into a trinity, which would be a vertical line. And then you would make another trinity with a horizontal line. It's easy to figure out what it is because they're just versions of each other. But once you make that cross, now you have a pole at the north, pole at the south, pole in the center, pole in the west, pole in the east. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then what you'd have to do is you'd have to make an X. So when you make an X that goes across, now you have So you have those other circles, and then you have the circles on the end of that, but then it makes little mini X's in each one of those. This is it. Yes! Oh, I'm so excited. All right, so this is it. Okay, now I'm gonna. All right, cool. Basically, yeah, that's it. So to get to the fourth dimensional understanding awareness, right? As a consciousness being, the way that you grow, the way that you create is through awareness and perspectives and identification and allotment of characteristics to aspects of self, right? That's how a person's a person, right? It's just a bunch of molecules, and some being, the I am that's being you, has decided to allot specific characteristics to individualize aspects or parts of itself to be able to relate to its world, right? So the cell is just responsible for being a cell. It's like, I'm a cell, I have cell parts, I do cell things. And a person is responsible for being a person because I'm a person, I have person parts, and I do person things. This is cool. I'm going to, offline, I have to sit down and do this, but that's how you go from the third dimension to the fourth dimension, because what happens is this. Okay, you ready? So if you do have the pen and paper, well, never mind, I didn't say that yet. So if you want to grab a pen and paper, you guys get to witness kind of an outward expression of how my mind works when I'm getting revelation. So, and I'm going to keep it all in here. All right, you ready? So if you get a pen and paper, okay, draw a cross. All right. Now at the top of the cross, draw a circle. The bottom of the cross, the top of the vertical line, draw a circle. Bottom of the vertical line, draw a circle. The middle of the vertical line, draw a circle. All right. Now, draw a horizontal line through it. Okay. On the left, draw a little circle. On the right, draw a little circle. So you should have 5 circles. You have north, south, east, west, and center. All right. Now, the next thing you want to do is the way that you find, it's really awesome when you expand your awareness and grow something multidimensionally inside of yourself, because in a weird way, you just divide it, right? But then when you divide it, you're making, everything's inversions. I'll explain that afterwards. So if you're going to draw a cross, well, now you need the inversion of that, which is the X. Now, this is really cool. If you want to Google this, Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, if you want to seek the kingdom, you must locate James the Just, for it is because of him that both heaven and earth came into being. All right. Now, you got to think about that statement. That wouldn't make sense if he was just talking about it at the time, right? Because he's talking to people, he's like, seek out James the Just. And James the Just, if I remember correctly, actually died before Jesus. If I remember correctly. I think he lost his head, right? If that part of the story is true. But regardless, that wouldn't make much sense that Jesus is like, hey, I have all this information about God, but if you want to know the truth, go find this other dude that's probably dead, right? So, everything's connected. What looks like the past, present, future, and everything like that. You can find clues everywhere. You can find clues on a TV show. You can find clues tuning into my podcast, and there are things I say that are exactly what you've been wondering about lately. Or you had a question or something like that. Like, how did that happen? Because everything's connected, right? We're in this like holographic game, and it's so fun. So if you Google James the Just, everywhere you look to find him, it's always the same image. It's this dude throwing down gang signs, which is there's a code there. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And of course, he has the book in his hand. He's got a book in his hand. All right, so anyways, if you look at the pictures, oh, yes! Oh man, if I can only show you guys this. All right, so if you Google James the Just and you look at the picture on Wikipedia, okay? There's nothing is superfluous in this stuff, right? So look at his frock. He's got a cross, right? On one side, and then on the other side, there's an X. Heaven and earth. Heaven and earth. There's something about those fingers that he's throwing up too that I don't know. But that symbol on the book, if you're looking at it, he has a book. And there are 4 circles, one in each corner on that book. And then if you look at the symbol that's in the center, it's 4 overlapping circles. And that symbol you see all over the churches, and it's always synonymous with Christ. The 4 circles come together and they create a 5th circle, 5 golden rings. By the way, there's a code in that too. It's crazy. The 12 days of Christmas, it's showing you how to draw a geometric mandala of stuff. Anyways, and then if you also look too on the James the Just, he's holding the book, and one of the, like, if you look, 2 of the circles are red in the corners and 2 are blue, and it's showing that law of inversion principle, right? So if from northeast to southwest is the blue circles, and you're going to have another X line that goes through, that's going to be the inversion of that, masculine, feminine, just how it works, right? So you can call the cross masculine or feminine, whatever you want, but one of them is going to be masculine, and then the X, let's say you call the cross masculine, then the X is going to be feminine, vice versa. Spirit, body, whatever. That's the law. That's like the yin yang, and they come together and they make 3. And going back to what Jesus said, congratulations to the one who came into being before coming into being. If you become my disciples and pay attention to my saying, these stones will serve you. So basically he's saying right there, I'll get to that part later, but he's saying, if you pay attention, these stones will serve you. This is how, by mastering yourself and getting yourself into a 4th dimensional awareness of your power and your tools and your parts of your body, consciousness body, you can master your world. And then he says, for there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death. And actually, this is going to tie into this drawing that I was telling you guys about. Okay, so you draw the cross, right? And right now you're going to have 5 circles in the north, south, east, west, right? And then draw an X through that cross, right? So that it would line up, so that you could actually make a box out of it, right? You know what I'm saying? If you're looking at it, right? So you have a cross, and then you have the X. X marks the spot, right? Now you can draw a box connecting all those dots. So at the end of the lines of your X, draw a circle. Right? So you do your first cross, and then you have the other one, right? So now it should look like you have a box, right? So go ahead and finish the box. Right? So there will be 3 circles going across the top, 3 circles going across the middle, and 3 circles going across the bottom. You guys notice something here? What did Nikola Tesla say about the secrets of 3, 6, and 9? All right, now, here's where it gets fascinating. Now that you made that box, all right, you should have, if you just did this, let me just draw it out, see what you did. So I told you guys to do this, 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 this. No, that's what you guys just did. Okay. All right, and then so make the parameters into a box. All right, so you connect those dots. All right, connect the dots. All right, now, do you notice something? It looks like you have 4 squares, right? So what I want you to do is from the North Pole to the west, so the North Pole circle to the West circle, draw a line connecting those two. It's gonna make it so that the upper left-hand box has an X, right? And then basically do the same thing with all of them, so that you're gonna have 4 X's, right? So if you look at it now, it's gonna look like you have a diamond in the middle of a box, right? And the way consciousness works, Jesus said, where 2 or more are gathered, right, in my name, I am there. Where 2 or more are gathered, I am there. Okay? Why? Because I am requires juxtaposition, relativity. So you need at least a cross to have that, to have consciousness. You need it. Or at least, sorry, maybe you only, I don't think you can have any consciousness without that juxtaposition of a cross. And I think that's ultimately what the symbology of the cross was. I think many things about if we were in a night cycle of ignorance. How valuable it would be to mislead people by taking something that means one thing and making it mean something terrifying and horrible. But anyways, so okay, so you've drawn that. Now, here's what's fascinating. So when you're expanding, now, granted, guys, where I'm at right now, I'm going to give you the things that I have now. I think there's some subject to some changing, but I'll tell you what I've been given as the rule of how this works. So whenever you make a line with a North Pole and a South Pole, one of them will be the inversion of the other. All right? And we talked yesterday and through the past couple of episodes about how you are in the center, right? Now, we have gone out to the peripheral a lot of times in our lives and thought we were so let's say an echo, we talk about echo, right? So when you hear a voice in your head that's discouraging, that acts like the devil, right, to you, why does the devil whisper in your own voice? Because it's literally a reverberation and an echo of what you said to that part of yourself. So if you've done things in what appears to be the past now, at the time you condemned yourself, so, I'm such an idiot, right? It's like yelling out over a lake, I'm an idiot, I'm an idiot, I'm an idiot, I'm an idiot. Silo, I don't really mean it. I know, buddy. I wasn't calling myself an idiot. Come here. I'm not an idiot. I know that. See, even my cat doesn't want me saying that, right? That's really what it is. Now, your relationship to the reverberation back to you is going to determine how you feel in the present moment when it washes over you. If you know it to be an echo and know that nobody else put it there but you and take responsibility for it, then there's no need to resist it. I don't have to resist the echo from a lake when I yell at it. But it's important for me to accept it, to understand that it's an echo from something I said in the moment prior. And it's all good, right? So anyways, all right, what we're going to do, my mind is like wanting to completely solve this thing before I present it to you guys. But like I said before, right, everything's incomplete, right? But the basic rules are you're going to have, so when you each line that you draw, so in the beginning, so at the very, very center circle, that's you. So a lot of you guys are going to be more evolved in your awareness already. So let's take an average person who hasn't snapped into awareness of what they are yet. They think that they are one inside of themselves, but they don't know their parts. So they're actually getting different messages from different parts of themselves, and because they haven't divided to conquer, let me Google that just to make sure that's right. At one point in time in my life, I had thought I looked up the word conquer, and I thought it meant ascend, but let's find out. What's the matter, Sal? Come here. To win, defeat an adversary, overcome, subdue, make a conquest, be victorious, win or secure something. Well, that's really cool. To acquire a country by force of arms. Sorry. So, let me pause it. Let me see what's going on with my cat. All right. I have no idea what he wanted. He has food. I gave him treats. He's got his toy going on. So divide and conquer, right? To overcome an adversary, right? Know thyself. So some people, this is another fascinating thing too. I've talked about it before, right? That I remember the day when I first put some distance between me and my thoughts. And so even though I said it was the first time I heard my thought, whatever it was 4 or 5 years ago, my thoughts were thinking me. It was the first, that was a lot, had a huge impact on me. And then I read a report or something, an article recently, and then I think I looked up a couple more articles just to see if there's any more data. But it was talking about that between up to 70% of people don't have an inner monologue. I thought that was really fascinating. And I asked somebody recently if they have a monologue. They said no. And it got me thinking. You know, when I talk about that, I was like the Bible talks about Adam was put in a great sleep. You know, I once was blind, but now I see. It's funny because I think my thoughts thought me and ran me. And I had thoughts coming in from lots of different directions, as we're going to explore on this breakdown here. And I didn't know. I thought all of the thoughts were coming from the same part, and there was only one part, and that one part was me. It's funny too, because in spirituality you hear about oneness and stuff, and I think there's value in that, but you can't have one without relationship. So you can't have one without many, you can't have many. So it's the many and the one and the many. And I think that's a very, very important distinction. Because for me personally, when I went from the three-dimensional awareness of self to what I believe is my now growing into a fourth-dimensional awareness of self, and maybe even a fifth-dimensional awareness of self. I could probably do that. Anyways, but for now, what I'm going to be exploring is how to communicate the fourth-dimensional awareness of self with others. So my apologies. In my mind, that's one of the things about inspiration to be aware of. Be careful what you wish for. So just as I entertain that idea about the fifth dimensional self, I just got a flood of information pouring in, trying to answer that for me. But I'm like, no. We don't need that now. Right now, we're working on this. And it's like, you sure? Because I can just blast out a bunch of information. No, it's all good. All right, we're focusing on this. Right now, we're doing fourth dimension. So people that speak in a monologue, they may not be able to decipher. Well, how could you decipher? How could you pick and choose, right? What is what, right? I'm gonna have to go deeper on that afterwards, because you guys, I gotta show you guys some stuff that I haven't said to you yet, so it wouldn't make any sense. Okay, so at the top, the North Pole, let's write creator, okay? And then the South Pole circle, let's draw creation. Okay. And then on the East Pole circle, put possibility. On the West Pole, put for sake of making things easier for people, we can call it the past. Technically, I wanted to call it the presented, rather than the past for multiple reasons. But why does my mind, I just went to write past. My mind doesn't even want to let me write past. But I want it to be confusing. Possibility and presented. Oh, I get it. Okay, yeah, presented is better. All right, so let's look at this, guys, right? So what we did is we just made a vertical line, and these could probably be reversed. I don't think it really matters, but so now you have a vertical line, and at the top you have the creator, right? So what's the inversion of that? The creation, right? And then so what's the invert? Now again, this may change in the future. This is what came, so I wrote it, and this is the process that it's telling me to do now. And maybe part of if it is going to change, it requires me doing this, right? And then the horizontal line is an inversion of that, right? So you have the creator and his creation. What is it? There's something. No, maybe it is supposed. Yeah, and then presented and possibility. Those are actually inversions of the creator and creation. No, it has to be past. Sorry, guys. That's okay. So the inversion of the creator and creation is past and possibility. Believe it or not, right? That makes sense to me. Okay. And then now, so you have that cross. Now we're going to do the X the circles of the X in each of the corners. So in the upper left-hand corner, right, intelligence. And then the upper right-hand corner, right, inspiration. The bottom right-hand corner, right, intuition. And the bottom left-hand corner, right, instinct. Okay. And I don't know if I told you guys, yeah, I think I already told you guys to do this. Yeah, so now, you see how there's X's in each of those boxes? So you have an upper left-hand box, upper right-hand box, lower left-hand box, lower right-hand box. We have X's there. So you actually created another form of consciousness where two or more are joined I am. So there's actually going to be a consciousness in those joining lines. Okay? So in the upper left-hand box, at the center of that X, you're going to draw a circle. There's a consciousness in there. That one is actually would be conscious. Right? And then in the upper right hand, now this is what's cool. So look, right? So you have look at all the circles that contribute to that X in that square. All right. For now, what we're going to do for the middle circle, the very middle circle, I'm going to put I am. Okay. So when you combine I am with the creator, with intelligence, and with the past, it creates the consciousness. Conscious, right? When you combine the right square is going to be the creator, inspiration, possibility, and I am, and it's going to create inspiration. Wait, no, sorry. I'm sorry. No, that's not what's going to create. Sorry. The creator plus inspiration plus possibility plus I am equals superconscious. Okay. And then the bottom right, creation plus intuition plus possibility plus I am equals subconscious. And then the final left hand box. Oh man, this is going to be the because I've been looking away from the mic, this is probably going to sound terrible. Let me look at that. Oh, whatever. What are you going to do? The left hand box is creation plus instinct plus past plus I am equals the unconscious. All right. So guess how many total circles you have? You have 13. Christ plus 12 apostles equals what? All right. Christ was the 13th is the transformer. It's the one that it's the final. Once you hit the 13, you go up to the next dimension. So once you make those 13, at least going from third to fourth. I don't know if it's going to continue. I don't know if it's like that to go from fourth to fifth, but that's how you go from third to fourth dimensional awareness. I'm sure there'll be more things that I'm going to add, but that's been whispering in my ear for a couple of years, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do with it yet. And so it took some time for me to figure out some other stuff. Now, if you're near a PC or anything like that, so we talked about James the Just, right? So those are the four circles that were in the corner. And then what ends up happening is the conscious, the superconscious, the subconscious, the unconscious, and the conscious, when understood, combine to make the Christ consciousness or the fourth dimensional consciousness, right? Or maybe fifth, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And then what's really interesting is we've talked about before the tetramorph, right? So if you Google tetramorph, right? Tetramorph. And you can look right at the Wikipedia result that comes back right away. And look at this. Look at this. That mandorla symbol that you see where the Christ is sitting in, that mandorla is a result of two overlapping circles. So it's giving you a clue there, right? And then there's a little thing beneath it that looks like there's another circle involved. There's little clues telling us everything, right? And then there's a statue one, and it shows there's a man with wings, there's an eagle with wings, there's a lion with wings, and there's a bull with wings. Same thing on another picture. Sometimes so it's eagle with wings, lion with wings, bull with wings, and the man with wings, right? And they're holding books, and in the books they have little codes in there. It's so cool. There's another one, same thing. It's a tetramorph. They call it the four elements or the four faces of God. And so what I believe is being represented here is the unconscious is represented by the bull. The lion subconscious is represented, the lion is represented by the subconscious. The angel is represented by the superconscious, and the man is represented by the conscious. And each of those consciousnesses have four elements that make them what they are. Each one of them has their own cross in it, and they all combine. And when the 13 combine, you realize the key here is that you are the center. Right? And I think that's this like super harmony is like you got to get to the center and realize you're the heart of all of these. So it's almost like my character was born with a lot of inspiration. It overly identified with its capacity to bring in inspiration. So there's more to this that I've drawn out that I see that I don't want to make this any more confusing than it might already be. But basically, when you have all these, I want to say it, it's not going to make sense. I mean, it might make sense. So when you look at the picture that you drew, it's a diamond inside of a square. Inside of a square. Basically, the flat planes are the receivers. So the intelligence would actually be radiating to the flat plane. The inspiration would be radiating to the flat plane. The intuition would, and the instinct. Anyways, doesn't matter. But basically, these are your tools. So you sit in between the past and possibility, the creator and creation, intelligence and intuition, instinct and inspiration. And they are all parts of you. And so when you bring yourself to the center of the heart, that's why they always show Christ with the heart, you can unite them all. And there's other things that I've gotten in Revelation that I haven't gone into because I don't have enough of the details yet. This somehow ties with these 13 chakras and these 13 virtues versus the 13 sins and how it all works. And it's basically just an imbalance of blood not flowing to it. The body and the blood of Christ, right? So it's like you got to pump the blood. Love needs to pour into all of these things. But, what's really, 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 really important is at the center of these is your intention. What is your intention? Right? Jesus said, one of the scripture I read, his disciples said, "Show us the place where you are, for we must seek it." He said to them, "Anyone here with 2 ears had better listen. There is a light within a person of light, and it shines on the whole world. If it does not shine, it is dark." And basically, you got to make a choice. Do you want to polarize and be the light? And if that's what you are, these are your tools. Say, I want to be the light. I want to be love. I want to cast love on everything. I want to be the love. I want to be in love. As I said before, my interpretation of what Buddha said was not that life is suffering, but attachment to the unbeloved is suffering, and detachment from the beloved is suffering. Detachment from being love is suffering. Attachment to unbeing love is suffering. So it would mean that not suffering is attachment to beloved. How do you attach to it? You be it, right? But you got to know, we got to know thyself. So some of these might change. But this is really, really helpful for me, and I'm going to start putting this into a lot more practical applications. And I'm glad that I said this to you guys because it's been in my head for a while, and I didn't know how to express it. So, when you're in the center, it makes it a lot easier. So let's say a thought comes in my head. It's like, I don't want to do the dishes. It's just a thought. It's an echo. You know, and what am I aiming for my future self? You know, like, how do I give love to my future self? There's more to it too. There's I'm like staring at this and I'm seeing so like how these other circles are gonna come into it. There's gonna be your world, your future self, and all that. I think the best way to look at this little chart that we drew here is on a consciousness level, what you have to draw from. I think that's a better way to say it, right? Because this little chart here is just consciousness, right? Jesus said 5 trees in paradise that do not change in the summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows of them won't taste death. So he's talking about consciousness. So I know we talked about like your future self on the material plane and things like that, and another thing, but for this part, this is basically showing you what you have access to. So you can draw in intelligence from the infinite source of intelligence. You can bring in inspiration. You can reprogram instinct. You can reprogram intuition, but they're all going to be, you're going to be basically breathing in and breathing out the whole time. So you're communicating with all of them. They're all parts of you, right? And when you operate from the center, if a voice comes in and it's like, hey, I'm scared of doing this thing, you know, and you set your intention to be the light, and grow in your capacity to recognize that you are the love, that you have access to everything, that you are divine, then you can hear that and accept it the same way you'd accept if you decided to go out on a lake and yell out something that you know isn't true. So if you make your intention like knowing the truth, knowing I'm divine, and knowing that I created an experience for myself of hyperlimitation because I could, because I am divine, because I am a creator, why not? And being able to recognize that and practice with it. When a voice comes in, ask yourself, is it an echo? Or is it an inspiration? Where's it coming from? And does it align with your intention? What is your intention? To be the light, to be love, or to pretend not to be? Right? I wonder if I'll name this something different, or just keep it in the Be Love series. I'll just put a little description in it. All right, I'm going to end it with that because this is going to grow, guys. So something to explore. I think the most important takeaway from all of it is maybe grasping if it's useful for you, grasping, and I don't know how many people it's going to be useful for. For me, it's going to be incredibly useful. But I would say just realize you're in the center, and is it radiating from the past? Is it an echo? And does it align with your intentions now? And if it doesn't, that's cool. Nobody else is saying it. There's no devil. Well, there could be, but only because it's an echo of your belief that you cast out, right? So it's like unifying and harmonizing with all these. You learn to move your arm not by like denying it or hating it. How do you learn to move your arm and your hand? By becoming one with it, but also knowing that you are the one responsible for it. But so first, to move your hand, you had to become aware you had a hand. To move your foot, you had to be aware you had a foot. To move your other foot, you had to be aware you had that foot. To move your other hand, you had to be aware you had to move that hand. Then you had to practice moving it. So think about the energy and the thought process and the level of union and relationship that you have, that one would have with their body when they're learning to move it, versus a lot of the energy that we have had towards parts of our body. I mean, ultimately, the world is a part of your body. Your thoughts are a part of you. Your feelings are a part of you. Your future self is a part of you. Your past self is a part of you. Like, all that is true, right? So how are you responding and reacting to those parts of yourself? And feel the energy, feel the thought process. Is there resistance? Is there anger? Is there adversarial reaction, defensive reaction? And then I want you to think about, if this is true, and I assure you that it is, I know it in my heart, that your world, your past self, your future self, your thoughts, your feelings, your unconscious, subconscious, they all are a part of you. that the only way they could ever behave like an enemy is simply by responding to how a divine creator being creates, and that is with you seeing them that way and transforming them simply with your thought, right? So if all of these things are your body, think about the way the energy and the energy, the feelings, the mentality, the thoughts, the intentions that you have, how a baby would have towards its hand. So first it's like it's got to discover parts of itself. Oh, wow, this is connected to me. Okay, not only is it connected to me, I think I can impact it. I think the thoughts that I hold, that I'm responsible somehow for this hand when I think, and you basically divide and conquer. You take over, right? But in order to do that, think about a lot of the ways that we might approach our past self, our future self, our outer world, our thoughts, our feelings, right? How we may approach them may be very resistant, hostile, defensive, as if they are separate from us. So we aren't going to master anything that we think we are not connected to. And you're not going to master anything that you don't think you're responsible for, period. You want to see the reason for a lot of the suffering and issues that we have in this world right now is look how much our society is broken down into this degree of non-responsibility. You know, like to a crazy degree, like just crazy. So remember that if a baby wanted to take control of its body and master it, what are its intentions? Is it unifying with it, or is it separating from it? Is it seeing it as an enemy, or is it seeing it as a part of itself? Is it declaring its lack of responsibility for what goes on with it, or is it claiming responsibility for what goes on with it? So first know thyself, become aware, and then put it into practice, just as the baby did. And if we carry that same energy in self-discovery that we did as babies with our hand and locating all the different parts of the body towards our true self, true nature, body, mind, spirit, multidimensional self, and claim the same level of responsibility and joy and expression of love that we did towards that physical body, which is a very, very small representation of ourselves, towards the much larger representation of ourselves, and grow in and accept the idea that my world is a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted projected reflection of my conception of myself. That's my intention, to own that. Again, can't be a master of anything that you refuse to take responsibility for being the master of. Yeah, I really want to master my hand, but this stupid hand isn't doing what I tell it. This hand's stupid. This hand is a jerk. This hand is triggering me. Right? So anyways, I'll talk to you guys soon.